Hello, happy Pride Month, and welcome to episode 175 of Tall Guy Talks Travel with Rick Doherty. Of course, I am your host, Rick Doherty. On the show today, we're picking up where we left off in last week's episode. Maz and I started our conversation about what we're expecting and what we're hoping to hear at the D23 Expo in Anaheim, California, the weekend of August 9th through the 11th. For anyone unfamiliar, D23 is where the Walt Disney Company makes announcements for movies, television shows, and where we will be spending our discussion time, the theme parks. Both Maz and I have set aside time on August 11th to record our initial thoughts on those announcements. We actually have a lot of things planned for the next few weeks and months on the podcast. Make sure you're subscribed to the Tall Guy Talks Travel with Rick Doherty YouTube channel to be a part of all of it. This is my birthday month, so I expect to be hitting the parks a lot more and maybe even checking out a few more minor league ballparks. Once you're subscribed, or if you're already subscribed, make sure to like videos and podcasts and leave positive comments. You would be amazed at how much those things help. Right now, let's get to the fun stuff. Thanks for being here, Maz.
Thanks for having me.
So I think we all agree that the natural place for any Marvel on the East Coast would be Hollywood Studios. And I think that might be what they're thinking. We're not going to expand this park until we know if we can use Marvel. But getting back to Disneyland forward, I wanted to ask you, do you think Avengers Campus, that tiny little nook of Disney's California Adventure, is going to be enough Marvel? And do you think we might get more Marvel over in Disneyland with this expansion? Or do you think they're going to wait because the MCU isn't drawing the numbers that it was drawing when they built Avengers Campus?
I personally would love to see more Avengers. I think there are a lot of classic superheroes they could still draw on who would still attract the crowds. I think that they definitely couldn't base it off of some of their most recent movies because, like you said, they're not drawing the numbers that they once were. But I feel like, again, this is based off of nothing, but I feel like at this point they're going to wait because Avengers Campus is still pulling a lot of people in, even if it's tiny. And I feel like almost they'll say, okay, we've got that covered right now. Let's try to pull people in with some other movies that they may like. But I would love to see more Marvel come to the parks. I think they've done such a good job with it so far.
And they built Avengers Campus. I understand they only had a certain amount of land. And we are probably going to get that announcement on the e-ticket attraction for Avengers Campus. Like, we never got that. So hopefully that's coming as well. But I think because they had such a limited amount of land, it's possible that we might get something else. I could see maybe Wakanda or something like that. Now, there's also rumors that the e-ticket attraction might be a Wakanda attraction, but we'll have to see. I would really love for, even as not a Marvel fan, like you're a Marvel fan, I would love to see that come because I think that it would add a new excitement to Marvel. Like maybe a boost in the parks would be what the movies need a little bit to sort of, refocus on everything. Now, the big question is, what are we looking at, you think? Like 2042, you said earlier, for the opening of Disneyland Forward, or 2032?
Yeah, I think I said 2042. Maybe that's what I should stick with because that was first out of my mouth. No, I definitely think it will be open before then. It better be. If it's not, then we have some serious problems.
Okay, let's say, I think that 2032 would probably be too ambitious. So 2037, do we want to say that?
Yeah, I'm good with that.
Okay, so 2037, we will have been doing this podcast for 16 years. So we started in 2021. Yeah, so 2037, we'd be doing this podcast for 16 years. Okay, Disney, 16 years has to be enough for media, okay? At that point, we need media for the opening of Disneyland forward. And I think you can get Maz a hotel room, you can get me a hotel room. Like we will have earned it by that point. As they try to expand these parks and take Disneyland to a new level, do you think that the combination of Disneyland improving and becoming more of a tourist park? I know that the locals at Disneyland say, no, you don't understand. It's not just a locals park. And no, it's not just a locals park, but it's a locals park. And Epic Universe opening in Orlando, that's happening next year. Do you think Walt Disney World is not only going to face competition from Epic Universe, but they're going to start facing competition from themselves as well?
I think they're definitely going to feel the competition from Epic Universe. And I think we can get into that in a different episode. There's a lot of thoughts there. But I think that by the time Disneyland Forward is actualized, hopefully Disney World will have enough changes and updates that it won't feel as much pressure on itself. We just gave them a very long window. They can do a lot to Disney World in 16 years, or less than that. But they can do a lot to Disney World by 2037. All right. So whether or not it will happen remains to be seen. But I definitely think they can avoid that competition with themselves.
Okay, here's a tough conversation. Here's tough talk, okay? This is like that real talk where, the friend has a drug addiction and you sit them down and you have to say to the friend, like, listen, you're going to have to quit this or whatever. Real talk. Does Walt Disney World care? Do they know that they are the number one travel destination in the world and they can let Tokyo Disneyland get the best stuff? They can afford to spend the money on Disneyland to get a few more people to travel to Disneyland because they know it doesn't matter what happens. Even when they open Epic Universe, Walt Disney World is still going to be the number one travel destination in the world. Do they just not care about those 4 theme parks?
I think they're going to go into it with a sort of hubris of, we're going to stay the number one travel location. It's not going to make that much of a difference. And I think they're almost going to be slapped in the face with reality a little bit. It sounds harsh, but I think
I called them drug addicts, so you're not sounding harsh.
If we're looking at Orlando, let's just say people are traveling to Orlando for vacation. Once Epic Universe opens, I think that's going to take a lot of business away from Disney World. Not just because it makes the Universal theme parks more than a 1 or 2 day addition to your Disney trip, but because Universal's hotels are priced so differently than Disney's are. You can stay at a value hotel at Universal for so much cheaper than you can at Disney World and still get fantastic amenities. I mean, they are really nice hotels that I think you're going to start seeing people do the flip where they stay at Universal and they just go to Disney World for a couple days to add on to their Universal vacation. And I think then Disney might start to care. So I think what's going to be really interesting is watching how they approach their hotels. And if we start to see more deals and things like that.
You just opened up a Pandora's box of things that I want to say right now. But one of them I will say is we just booked a really great deal for Walt Disney World next month, right? It's one night, but if it would have been multiple nights, it would have been an even better deal. But we just locked that down very, very recently to stay there around my birthday, right? And you know me, normally if I stay up there, I'm getting There's actually this golf course, and I love this golf course because if they're not having a tournament, they rent out the rooms that they give to the professional golfers who come in for the tournament, and they rent them out really cheaply. But anyway, like I would do something like that because I don't need to stay on property every time. But the deal was so good that we're like, let's stay on property. And then we're like, you know what? Let's stay at a moderate because this is such a good deal. So maybe we're going to end up seeing that, yes, it is going to pull down the price of the Disney resorts. Because let's be honest, $195 for All-Star movies is too much. Like, I love the All-Stars. I will praise the All-Stars because they have made Disney more affordable for more people. For upper middle class, let's say, they have sort of pulled that area in as well. But they've started creeping up into that $200 a night range. And if it's a race weekend, you can start getting Pop Century getting close to $300 a night. And that's ridiculous. So the Universal resorts having that impact would be amazing.
Yeah. I mean, selfishly, I would love to see it. I was recently looking at one night in like late November, early December at All Star Sports, and it was over $260 for one night at All Star Sports. And it should never be priced that high, ever. There's no way that you should be paying that much for that room.
And the worst part of All-Star Sports being that expensive probably means that there is a cheerleading expo or something happening that weekend. So not only are you paying $260 a night for that hotel room, but it's also going to be a more miserable experience than when you're paying $160 a night for that hotel room. So that is awful. Don't do that.
Yeah, no way.
But getting back to the Universal resorts, and they're building the new hotels, and they look amazing, and they have values like Cabana Bay and Endless Summer that are really, really good values, and probably a better quality hotel. Now, once you throw in all the Disney amenities, I'm not saying that the Disney ones aren't worth it. I'm just saying that if you're looking at just the room itself, the Universal ones are better. That's a big deal. The only thing that worries me about Universal having the ability to really impact Disney in that way is Epic Universe is not all that close to the other existing Universal theme parks. And then you're talking about it being X distance away from the Disney theme parks and how they're going to do that transportation. So I don't know if somebody's going to be like, we're going to stay at one of these new hotels right by Epic Universe and have our whole week of Disney and Universal from this one location, because it's only close to one theme park.
Yeah, definitely. But with the shuttle options, I could definitely see some families saying, yeah, we're going to stay at Dockside for a week, and we don't mind that it's, a 15-minute bus ride to Epic Universe, because if we're staying at Walt Disney World, it's a 15-minute bus ride to Animal Kingdom. So what's the difference? And I could see them saying, we're going to stay at one of those resorts, have a couple days at Universal, and then Uber to Disney for a day, or they say, and then we'll transfer to Disney and we'll only do 2 nights there instead of we used to do 4 or 5. Either way, that still hits Disney.
And Universal, listen, you're opening up these new hotels, you're putting them right by Epic Universe, which is opening next year. And you're thinking, man, are people really going to want to take the time to go to our other theme parks from those hotels? And I'm just saying, if you want to media comp us rooms,
We'll
We
test it
will
out.
gladly test that for you.
We'll be your guinea pigs, goodness of our hearts and all that.
Opening weekend, it'll be fine, right? Just make sure we get the express pass with it. Then the last thing I want to touch on, and there's so much more we could cover, because I think we're going to get announcements about Star Wars movies. I think we might get announcements on more original animated movies, which I think we really need, right? You just crossed your fingers there, like knocking on wood there. But our favorite ride, maybe Expedition Everest is still the top of your list, but I know we both have Big Thunder up there, closing for a long, long time. What are we hoping first to accomplish just with Big Thunder Mountain? And then we'll talk about beyond Big Thunder Mountain.
I would love to see them get the effects that Disneyland's Big Thunder has. I think it deserves it. Give our girl the best effects, close her down, update the track, make her nice and shiny again, and it'll be great. It'll all be worth it.
So I'm afraid something's going to happen in this retheme, in this refurb, and I'm sort of just trying to get to the acceptance phase of grieving, but I think they're going to smooth out this track, aren't they?
I think so. And it is what it is. I think they want more people to ride. And I think the jerkiness of it does dissuade some people, but it'll be fine. I feel like it's interesting because a while ago, there was rumors of it being rethemed altogether away from Big Thunder. And the fact that they're looking at closing it now makes me wonder, is it going to end up getting lumped in with some announcement where they're like, hey, we're bringing Encanto to Magic Kingdom and Big Thunder is going to change into an Encanto ride. I mean, who knows? Who knows? With a lengthy refurbishment, anything can happen. And as long as they keep the track similar, if they smooth it out, fine. As long as the track itself stays the same, you get those good drops and things like that, it'll still be a very fun ride.
So I know our co-host, who has been very busy, and no, we haven't kicked her off the show. So please,
no, we love her.
Stop thinking that that there's any beef between us and Sarah Says. Text her every day, okay? But she is very busy because she has a child, and she's not a spoiled, childless Disney adult like Maz and I. So she has heard that they are going to get rid of Frontierland altogether because it's insensitive. Now, I don't know about the insensitive part. The only reason I worry that they're going to be getting rid of Frontierland is because, and this is just Walt Disney World we're talking about right now, if they're going to do Beyond Big Thunder Mountain Railroad, and we're going to talk about that in a second, that's going to be a new land or new lands on the other side of Big Thunder. But now you have Tiana's Bayou Adventure. There's no way that they're not updating Pecos Bill at some point to be a Tiana restaurant. At that point, you have in one row there, Tiana's Bayou Adventure, a Tiana restaurant, the brand new Pirates of the Caribbean lounge that they're going to build on the other side of Pecos Bill, and then you have Pirates of the Caribbean. I think we're getting New Orleans Square.
I would be all over that.
I understand, but the cheese stands alone in that situation with Big Thunder Mountain being there. Now, it's possible that they theme well, let's go to Beyond Big Thunder, because the rumors are Coco, Encanto, and Villains that will be on the other side of the Rivers of America, back in that back left-hand corner, beyond Big Thunder. It's possible that transition to Big Thunder and then under Big Thunder somehow, which I do think is part of this re-theme or this refurb, is going to be to get some sort of path that goes under that ride. And then if you transition into Coco, I think you can make that work and you can keep Big Thunder. Because I think it would be easy to transition Big Thunder, now Coco, now Encanto, and we're getting more and more into the dream world or into the extravagant, and then boom, villains at the end of that.
Yeah, I have so many thoughts on this. I feel like whatever they do is going to be really hard to unify it under a single land theme because they're throwing out these ideas that are really all unrelated. I think there's definitely, a potential to say, here's Villains Land. I think that would probably be their best avenue. I mean, you could keep Big Thunder pretty much the same. You light it differently with those spires. It can look like a pretty villainous attraction.
If they turned it into the thrill ride version of Haunted Mansion, that would be so fantastic.
Yeah. There's some cool potential there. And then you could pull in more villain rides. One of the things that I've said is that I want Disney to go back to building lands that have rides from different IPs. I think they've kind of gotten into this shoehorned idea lately that every land has to be a Frozen land, a Coco land, an Encanto land. And I think it's really cool to walk into a land and say, here are a bunch of different, like Fantasyland. You walk through Fantasyland and you get to pop into all these different stories. And I would love to see that happen beyond Big Thunder.
Okay, so let me posit this to you. Would Frontierland being made up of Tom Sawyer Island, Big Thunder Mountain Railroad, Encanto, and Coco make sense?
Not to me. Because really what do Encanto and Coco have to do with the frontier,
Well, if you're not having an Americentric view of things, then I do think that Coco at least fits into Frontierland.
Yeah, I could see Coco a lot more easily than I can Encanto. And then, there's the talk of getting Encanto in Animal Kingdom potentially was brought up as a blue sky. So then there's the question of how many parks are we going to put Encanto in? Are we going to have, a ride in Animal Kingdom and a land in Magic Kingdom, vice versa? Who knows? And I think the big question right now with Frontierland is what the heck are they going to do with Tom Sawyer's Island? Because that's got to change.
It's got to?
I don't think people are going to it. It's pretty empty. And if they were to say, we're changing Tom Sawyer's Island to Coco's Island, you're going to get a lot more crowds.
If Encanto goes over to Animal Kingdom and we get that Central America or South America section that I think everybody's hoping we get instead of a Zootopia land, I think that would be the best case scenario for Animal Kingdom there, even though it's still a little problematic in the people of color, let's put them in Animal Kingdom, but it makes more sense than Zootopia, right? Then Coco and Big Thunder Mountain could be a multiple IP or one IP and one ride that is not an IP land of Frontierland. And then you can move into Villains Land, which is multiple IP as well. So I think there's the potential to get what you're saying, to get some lands that aren't just single IP lands. Hopefully they don't turn Big Thunder into Coco Presents Big Thunder Mountain and they're playing, what's the song?
Remember Me?
No, not Remember Me. The Loco one.
Oh. Yeah, I was just thinking how absurd it would be if you're riding Big Thunder and Remember Me is playing. And you're,
But
like,
Un
going through
Poco
these big
Loco,
circles.
like that would make sense, like because it's
Yeah.
crazy and it's all that kind of stuff. I hope that doesn't happen. I'm just unfortunately throwing it out there, and now it's in the zeitgeist, and now it will happen. But I agree with you on Tom Sawyer Island for a number of reasons. Listen, I'm not saying there are places that you can hide and do nefarious things on Tom Sawyer Island. I'm just saying there's a lot of newborn babies named Huck here in Orlando. But I don't think with the necessity to take a raft over there, unless they build some sort of bridge. And then that basically eliminates taking the Liberty Bell around the rivers of America, which I think there would be a huge uproar if you got rid of that. But you'd either have to build some sort of bridge that could be raised every half hour, or people are going to have to get over there with a raft. And I think if people have to take a raft over there and back, I don't think anything you put there is really going to help all that much. Now, a restaurant, maybe, because if you have to have a reservation to get on the raft, then people are going to be more likely to get on the raft for a reservation when they know they're going to experience something on the other end than they are to just go and even ride a flat ride.
Yeah, I do agree. I think that the transportation is part of the issue. I would love to see them invest the money to build a bridge that could be raised and lowered. I don't think it will ever happen, especially because, in their eyes, they've got the raft. Why would you change that?
Well, and we've seen with some of the nighttime spectaculars at Epcot, when they have to raise that bridge and it's once a day, it causes so much of a problem. Now, I understand the bridge over to Tom Sawyer Island would not be anything nearly as crowded as the bridge through World Showcase, but it creates the same problem. And if you put anything over there that's new, you know how Disney fans get. And the second something is new, we find a way to overcrowd the infrastructure.
Yeah, I feel like overall, they're going to focus a lot of energy in that Big Thunder section. And I guess I just wonder if that's the area of the park that right now needs the attention. Because if you're going to say we're making changes to Magic Kingdom, I'm going to say you should look at Tomorrowland, and you should be focusing on making that a stronger area of the park with maybe fewer empty buildings before you go building a whole new Blue Sky expansion land.
Listen, Disneyland Forward is talking about adding to both DCA and Disneyland Park across the street when they have a worse Tomorrowland than we have over at Walt Disney World. So there is some blockage in Bob Iger's mind to fixing Tomorrowland no matter what the park. Because, yeah, we need more in, even with Tron. And Tron made a huge difference in Tomorrowland and Walt Disney World, but it's tucked way in the back. It's still only on boarding groups, so you can't just go and get in the queue, which means that it's really effectively not taking people out of the park because they're only going back to that part of the park if they already have the boarding group for the ride. So I do think that there is so much that they need to do to these Tomorrowlands, and they just don't seem to care. They seem to be saying, like, why is Big Thunder potentially getting a new track? And they're not doing a new track for Space Freaking Mountain that is, you need to go to a chiropractor after you ride it.
Exactly. I mean, seriously, if any ride in that park needs to shut down for a complete retracking, it is Space Mountain. Like, there's absolutely no contest. And you'd think especially they'd maybe say, hey, we'll move Tron off boarding groups, and then we'll refurb Space Mountain. This will be part of our plan. Maybe it is. We've had no indication that they're even considering it.
I don't know the last time you've done the People Mover at night, because, you know, your vacations are a little different. Like, you're not always like, I have to make sure to ride the People Mover at night. You have more things to accomplish. But the last few times when I've gone through Space Mountain on the People Mover late at night, it hasn't felt as dark in there. Like, I don't know if they need to, like, repaint the walls black or something. It just feels like light is being let in. Sometimes you have jerks on their cell phones on the People Mover, and it's creating that light because you can't just ride a ride for 10 minutes without watching a baseball game on your phone like a selfish jerk. I'm not going to name any names, but it seems like every little bit of light, like if the People Mover goes down and they have to turn on the lights, you can see that in Space Mountain. Like, that is distracting from your ride experience. And even those stars, like, it's so popular when they do the Halloween re-theme. Oh, and this Halloween party is a whole nother thing that we're going to have an episode. But anyway, they do the Halloween re-theme where you just go through in the complete dark and in the black. And that's so popular that I think that they need to find a way to dial down the stars and dial down the peripheral light, because I just don't think it feels as dark in that building anymore.
Yeah, I agree. And, you know, maybe I'm biased because truly the most fun I've ever had on Space Mountain was riding it during the Halloween party in pitch blackness. But I would love them to find a way, you know, to make it a little darker in there and kind of dial up the thrills a little bit, because the last couple times I've ridden it, and you know, it's not one that I have to do every time because the track is so rough. But the last couple times I have ridden it, it doesn't feel as thrilling as it used to. And I think part of it is because you can see so much of the track that you kind of lose that element of, oh my gosh, I don't know where I'm going. I'm careening around space in this, you know, runaway rocket, and what's happening. And it's just kind of like, oh, here's a dip. You know, so you lose a little thrill.
Well, and that's such a huge part of the thrill of Space Mountain. Doesn't it only go like 2 miles an hour faster than the Barnstormer? I think I recently saw that. Yeah. So you need the surprise element to make it that thrilling. We're going to find out so much more about Big Thunder Mountain, hopefully about Space Mountain, Disneyland Forward, all of these things at D23, August 9th through 11th in Anaheim, California. And Maz and I are going to have so many thoughts afterwards. Be prepared for 2 or 3 episodes of rants. It is going to be amazing. Thank you so much for joining us today, Maz.
Thanks for letting me on the show.
As I mentioned earlier, this is the beginning of Pride Month. I'm sure some of our regular listeners remember last year when I talked about Alicia Stella from Orlando Park Stop and her fundraiser for the Trevor Project. Alicia is the foremost expert in providing informative and entertaining coverage of the upcoming Epic Universe theme park at Universal Orlando Resort. Check out her content, and if you can afford to donate, head to give.thetrevorproject.org/parkstop. That's give.thetrevorproject.org/parkstop. I really don't have anything to do with this fundraiser, but it's important to me to highlight people who are trying to make a difference for the LGBTQ plus community, especially here in Florida and especially right now. This has been episode 175 of Tall Guy Talks Travel with Rick Doherty. We will be back with a brand new episode next Thursday. Until then, have a great week.